Imagine your own brother looking you in the eye smiling, while secretly stealing the very land your mother left you. Land worth millions? Imagine everyone around you telling you to stay quiet, that fighting back would bring nothing but shame. What would you do? Stay silent or rise? With a revenge so devastating he'd never recover. If you've ever dreamed of watching karma hit back harder than anyone imagined, stick around. And if you believe in fighting for your rights no matter the cost, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into one of the most cold, calculated, and satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. The story starts on a day that should have been ordinary. I was sipping tea on the worn wooden porch of my late mother's house when the phone rang. It was a lawyer, someone I barely knew, telling me that ownership of my land had already been transferred. I remember gripping the armrest so hard that my knuckles turned white. Transferred? I whispered. That's impossible. That land is mine. The lawyer hesitated, then added quietly, your brother came in with the documents. The transfer was signed weeks ago. At that moment, the world tilted. My own brother, my blood, the person who grew up beside me, eating the same meals, playing in the same dusty yard, listening to the same bedtime stories from our mother, had stabbed me in the back, and not just with a small betrayal. No, he had forged papers. He had stolen the land my mother had entrusted to me, the land worth millions. I still remember the last words my mother whispered on her deathbed. Her hand was weak but warm as it clutched mine. Never stay silent when someone takes away your rights. Silence only feeds the thief. But now, as the reality sank in, silence was exactly what everyone demanded of me. Aunts, uncles, neighbors, even family friends. They all whispered the same thing. He's your brother. Don't drag this into court. It will only bring shame. One uncle said bluntly, think about our family name. Do you want the community gossiping that you're fighting your own blood? I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn every bridge that protected him. But instead, I smiled. A small, tight smile that no one understood. Because in that moment, something clicked inside me. I realized silence could be my mask. If everyone thought I was weak, broken, too scared to fight, they'd never see the storm I was preparing behind the scenes. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the old wooden chest where my mother kept her documents. The smell of mothballs, old paper, and faint jasmine filled the air. My hands shook as I sifted through birth certificates, old tax receipts, faded letters. And then I found it. The original deed with my name written in bold, undeniable ink. My heart pounded. For a second, I let myself smile, but the smile faded as fast as it came. Because I knew my brother. He wasn't stupid. If he had forged the papers, he had done it well. He had people helping him, and he had money. But what he didn't have was patience, and patience was going to be my weapon. In the weeks that followed, I perfected my mask.
Whenever I saw him at family gatherings, I let him see me small.
I let him see me broken. I let him believe his betrayal had crushed me. He would smirk, clap me on the back, and say things like, you should move on. That land was too much responsibility for you anyway. Every word was a knife. But I smiled, I nodded. I even said, you're right. And in those moments, I could see the arrogance in his eyes grow. He thought he had won. He thought I was too weak to fight back. But behind closed doors, I was gathering strength. I went to the local registrar's office and pulled every record of the land from the last 20 years. I spoke to the old village clerk who had known my mother personally. I found witnesses, neighbors who had heard my mother clearly say, this land is for her. And slowly, piece by piece, I built my arsenal. But revenge is not just about documents. It's about timing. And timing requires patience. One evening, I overheard relatives in the kitchen while I passed by. They didn't know I was listening. Poor girl, she lost everything.
But what can she do?
A woman fighting her brother in court? She'll only embarrass herself. Their laughter stung worse than knives. But instead of crying, I wrote their words down in a small notebook. Every insult, every doubt, every sneer. Because I wanted to remember. I wanted fuel for the fire. And my brother, he flaunted his new victory like a crown. He started building on the land, bringing in contractors, making plans to sell plots. I watched quietly from the sidelines, never saying a word. But inside, my resolve hardened with every brick he laid. Because I wasn't just going to take the land back. I was going to destroy the illusion of power he had built. I was going to rip off his mask in front of everyone who believed his lies. Weeks turned into months. My silence became so convincing that even close friends whispered, maybe she really gave up. But late at night, when the world was asleep, I was awake, collecting, filing, building. Every document I found was another bullet. Every witness statement was another blade. And when the arsenal was finally full, I waited. Because the right battle isn't fought in whispers. It's fought in the open. And that day was coming. My brother thought I was weak. That silence meant surrender. But what he never realized is that silence was my sharpest weapon. And when the day came to face him in court, his lies crumbled one by one. The day finally came. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper, polished wood, and nerves. As I walked through its heavy doors, I could feel every pair of eyes burning into me. Some curious, some pitying, some mocking. But I didn't care. My heart was pounding like a drum, yet my steps were steady. I wasn't walking in as the broken sister everyone pitied. I was walking in as the storm my brother never saw coming. And then I saw him, my brother, dressed in an expensive suit, smirking like he was attending a wedding, not a trial. His arrogance filled the room before he even opened his mouth.
"This is a waste of time," he said loudly to his lawyer, making sure I could hear.
"She doesn't have a case. She's just bitter." I kept my face calm. My silence had fooled him before. It would fool him again. But inside I was ready. The case began. His lawyer spoke first, spinning a web of lies so smoothly it almost sounded like truth. "Your Honor, my client rightfully owns this land. The transfer was legal, signed and sealed. His sister, unfortunately, is acting out of jealousy." People in the gallery murmured. I felt their eyes again, judging, doubting. But when it was my turn, I rose slowly, carrying a thick folder in my hands. My legs trembled slightly, but my voice was steady. "Your Honor," I began, "for months I was told to stay silent, that fighting would only bring shame. But silence, as my mother taught me, is not surrender. Today I bring proof, not just words." I opened the folder. Page by page, I laid out the documents. The original deed with my name, the tax receipts my mother had filed, witness statements from neighbors who had heard her last wishes. Every piece was a blade, and I stabbed it into the heart of his lies one by one. My brother's smirk began to fade. At first, he leaned back casually, confident, but then his brow furrowed. His lawyer shuffled papers nervously. By the third document, I saw sweat glistening on his forehead, and then I dropped the final bomb. A handwriting expert's report, proving that the signature on the forged transfer was fake, that it was not my mother's hand, that it was in fact his. The courtroom gasped. For the first time, my brother's mask cracked. His eyes darted, his lips pressed tight. He whispered furiously to his lawyer, but it was too late. The silence I had worn for months was over, and my voice, sharp, steady, undeniable, was tearing down his empire of lies. The judge leaned forward, his expression grave. "These documents are damning. The forgery is clear. This court rules in favor of the rightful owner, the plaintiff." My knees nearly buckled, not from weakness, but from the flood of relief crashing over me. The land was mine again. The justice didn't stop there. The judge's gavel struck again. As for the defendant, this court will be forwarding the matter for criminal investigation of forgery and fraud. The courtroom erupted, and my brother, he sat there, pale, eyes wide, his arrogance dissolved into panic. For once he had no words. News spreads fast in families. Within days, the whispers that once mocked me turned into a storm against him. Relatives who had told me to stay quiet now shook their heads in disgust at him. Friends who once called him clever now spat his name with contempt. He didn't just lose the land. He lost his reputation, his respect, his mask of honor that he had worn so proudly. Every time he stepped outside, people pointed, whispered. Children who once greeted him now avoided his gaze. His arrogance had been shattered publicly exactly where it hurt him most. And me? For the first time in months, I breathed freely. The land was back in my name. The house, the soil, the legacy of my mother. It was safe. But more than that, I had proven something. That silence is not weakness. Silence can be strategy. That evening, I went back to the land. The sun was setting, painting the fields in gold. I walked slowly across the soil, my fingers brushing through the tall grass. I could almost hear my mother's voice in the wind. Never stay silent when someone takes away your rights. I smiled, tears rolling down my cheeks. I didn't, Mama. I didn't. I wasn't just avenging myself. I was honoring her. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't loud. It's not shouting. It's not violence. It's patience. It's silence. Letting your enemy believe they've won, while you quietly sharpen every blade of truth. And when the time comes, their empire collapses under the weight of their own lies. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Don't forget to subscribe, Because we've got more stories where justice comes back harder than anyone expected. Until next time, remember, silence is not weakness.